Now, my personal investment objective is to grow my annual dividend income throughout my portfolio consistently, while also buying into stocks and ETFs which can grow over time too, making my portfolio value rise as well as my net worth, hopefully. Now, even though in late 2024 there are so many different stocks and ETFs which can obviously help me potentially achieve this, there are definitely a certain few that catch my eye and that seem to offer income and upside potential more than others. Now, this brings me into today's video where we will be analyzing one of my favorite income-oriented ETFs, SPYI from NEOS, which offers a ton of income potential from day one, also some upside along with that, and sort of as a bonus does this all very tax efficiently. Now, I'm not being paid to tell you that this ETF is either a good or bad investment vehicle, but instead I'm going to share my honest thoughts about the ETF, go through it, and when it comes to this ETF, I have a ton of thoughts about it. But with that being said, NEOS is sponsoring this video, and you guys can go to my first link down below my description and find out a lot more about NEOS and this ETF specifically. Now stick around because we're going to go over what this ETF is, how it works, and why I personally own just under 1,000 shares of this ETF as of right now. So if you're a dividend income focused investor, I promise you're going to want to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into this one. So again, the ETF that we're talking about in today's video is going to be ticker symbol SPYI, or the NEOS S&P 500 High Income ETF, and this is brought to us by NEOS. Now, this ETF came across my radar earlier this year, and I personally been buying a ton of shares ever since, but let's dig a little bit deeper into this ETF, see how it works, etc. So it says right here, the NEOS S&P 500 High Income ETF seeks to generate high monthly income in a tax-efficient manner with the potential for equity appreciation in rising markets. Now, although some investors might have the goal or the objective to build a portfolio out that's going to grow substantially over time, or to build a portfolio that's going to pay the maximum amount of income over time, like I said, for me personally, I sort of want a little bit of both, which is again why this ETF personally matches almost exactly what I'm looking for. Now, first off, it says high monthly income generation. SPYI aims to generate high monthly income by investing in the constituents of the S&P 500 index and implementing a data-driven call option strategy. Now, SPYI is not the first ETF to utilize the S&P 500, and then on top of that, implement a data-driven call option strategy. But the fact that this ETF offers more than just this, which we're going to read on to in a second, was what really caught my eye early on, and why I thought to myself, this is almost a perfect match for my portfolio. Now, I say this because this ETF also offers tax efficiency. It says right here, SPYI utilizes SPX index options classified as Section 1256 contracts. 60% long-term, 40% short-term, and a fund manager may seek to take advantage of tax loss harvesting opportunities. Now, tax efficiency might or might not be something that's really front and center on your mind, but I'm telling you for certain that as you build out your portfolio later on in the future and your positions get larger and larger and you start to make maybe more and more money, tax efficient investments are going to be something you're probably going to like. Now, this is one of the other main reasons on what sold me on SPYI personally for my portfolio a while ago. The fact that this ETF also offers upside potential, which doesn't normally seem to be the case with cover call style ETFs. Because of the cover call strategy, it sort of caps upside, but with SPYI, they seem to have thought about everything. It says SPYI aims to capture a portion of the S&P 500 upside when the index rises. And this is due to the fact that at times this ETF will of course sell SPX options, but also at times buy them. So even though this ETF might not necessarily grow as fast as the S&P 500, it is much more of an income-focused ETF. It still is going to offer some upside, which we're going to look a little bit deeper into the performance of it here in a second. Now, lastly, it says professional option management. Leverage the deep expertise and research of NEOS, combining decades of experience managing options-based ETFs. So more facts about SPYI. It has been trading since late August of 2022, so it hasn't been trading super long, but we do have some historical data to go off of. The expense ratio is 0.68%, so a decently fair price expense ratio in my opinion, just for all the exposure that you get with this ETF. And overall, in my opinion, a great option strategy ETF that basically has taken out pages from all the other high quality cover call style ETFs in my opinion. Now, before we talk more about the income generation that SPYI has paid to investors since inception, which is very important, especially if you are more of a dividend income focused investor like myself, looking at the performance of SPYI as of right now, on the 1 year time frame, this ETF is up 9.91%. And again, this is significant because this ETF has high income in its name. This is normally going to be used mostly to generate income consistently, but still is up almost 10% on the 1 year time frame. The max time frame since about August of 2022, we're talking 8.4% price return. Now this of course does not include any of those distribution payouts, and once again in my opinion a very impressive return just as far as price return for an ETF that's much more income oriented. Now the next thing I want to look at is all the distributions that SPYI has paid historically. Now a few things on this. First off, since inception SPYI has paid a very steady somewhere of around maybe 48 cent, 49 cent on average payouts every single month to investors. And again, this is for an ETF that cost in the low $50 per share. Now this equates to around a 12% more or less distribution rate and is very consistent, unlike a lot of other covered call style ETFs out there. And at least for me specifically, because I am a dividend investor that's going to be using at least some, if not all of my dividends in the future to pay for things like expenses, bills, to help out family and friends, etc. I want to know or have an idea of how much I'm going to get paid consistently on a monthly basis. Now at times, SPYI is paid out as low as 46 cents on a monthly basis. This was back in 2022. And then just as of recently, a few months back, we got a massive 56 cent payout, which is the largest payout we've seen since inception. But regardless, I think it's safe to say at this point, unless something dramatically changes, or unless we hear something from the management, that we're sort of going to assume this level of payouts every single month, which is amazing. Now this also means that with a $10,000 investment, theoretically speaking, and with a 12.1% distribution rate, which of course can change in the future, but as of right now, an investor that invests just $10K into SPYI is looking at $1,210 more or less in income per year, or around $100 per month in income from just a $10,000 investment. Not to mention this is an investment that at least historically has went up over time as well. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are curious, well, what's the total return for SPYI? How much has this ETF returned since inception? If we look at income, if we look at price return, everything all in one together, we're looking at a 41.68% total return on the max time frame. And again, this ETF has only been trading for a relatively short time frame. So for all those reasons and more, over the last year in 2024, I've been stacking up a ton of shares of SPYI, currently holding over 800 shares across my portfolios, which pays me several hundreds of dollars per month in income, which I can then of course reinvest into more shares of SPYI, or I can of course buy whatever else I want to across the markets. And overall, in my personal opinion, this ETF offers S&P 500 exposure and does it as close to as perfectly as I personally can think of. It offers exposure to the S&P utilizing the call option strategy, which generates income, but also does it tax efficiently. And lastly, offers upside because this ETF at times can, of course, sell and purchase SPX index options. And although the ETF is relatively new, it hasn't been trading for several years yet, I think this ETF is going to have a bright future ahead, or at least I'm personally betting on it. Now the next thing I want to do is compare SPYI to JEPI ETF, which are two covered call high income style ETFs that utilize the S&P 500 and an option strategy. Now, although neither one of these ETFs have been trading for a very long time, we do have a few different timeframes to look at. For example, over the last 6 months or so, SPYI, using total return as a metric, has outperformed JEPI by a tad. Year to date, SPYI has outperformed JEPI by a little bit more. And on the 1 year time frame, SPYI once again has outperformed JEPI by quite a margin, even though both these ETFs have somewhat of a similar strategy. Now on the 3 year time frame, SPYI has returned over 40% as far as total return goes, where JEPI's only returned around 25.35. Now I personally hold JEPI and SPYI in my portfolio, but over the last year or so, I've made it a point to make SPYI a much larger position. And in the last year, to be honest with you guys, I've even sold off some of my shares of JEPI and dumped that money into SPYI, which offers a much higher, more stable yield in my opinion than that of JEPI. Now, as always, before you decide to invest your hard-earned money in SPYI or any ETF for that matter across the stock market, take some of your own time and do some digging into whatever ETF or even stock for that matter you're looking into and see if or if not it matches your specific investment objectives, your risk profile, and if or if not it matches what you're looking for. And the cool thing is that these days, most of these ETFs have very robust websites where you can go in and see exactly how the ETF works, the performance, the distributions, and even dig a little bit deeper into some of the fun material like we did in today's video. But either way, do your own research and realize that every single ETF and stock out there might or might not be right for you specifically. Now, also with that being said, if you do want to dig a little bit deeper into SPYI specifically, I'm going to link their website, the first link down below in my description. So you can take some time and dig through the fun and see what you think of it, and comment down below your honest thoughts. So now that we talked about SPYI, the NEOS S&P 500 High Income ETF, one of my favorite ETFs across the entire market and one of my largest holdings as of right now. We talked about what this ETF is, how it works, and I share with you guys my personal thoughts on it. I lastly, most importantly, want to hear from you guys down below. Is SPYI an ETF that we would currently find in your portfolio? Let us know yes or no in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.